Good mythical afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Ayala with another vlog for you. This is 5-4, The War Expands, about the American Revolution. As always, please make sure that you're writing your information down and you enter the discussion board and put it in the proper placement. Yet again, this is 5-3, The War Expands. So when we left off on 5-3, we were talking about how the French wanted revenge after losing the French and Indian Wars to England. And because of Saratoga, which was the whole turning point of this war, make sure you remember Saratoga, Saratoga, Saratoga. Turning point of the war, Saratoga. Because prior to Saratoga, we were losing. After Saratoga, we begin to start winning, and we start getting help from our friends from all around the world. So this gorgeous man in that carpet and in his leggings and high heels is King Louis XVI of France, and he wants revenge on the French and on the England for making them lose all power in North America. So he decides to make an outright alliance with us. He decides to actually recognize us as an independent nation and begins to send funding, troops, and his navy to help us defeat the British. He also sent emissaries to Spain to help, and they were also persuaded by the French. Because you got to remember, the three major European powers, France, Britain, and England, France, Britain, and Spain, really disliked each other. So if there was a way so that two of them could gain up and fight the other one, they would do so. And the American Revolution, or the War for Independence, gave them that opportunity. And without the King of France and their assistance, we would have not won this war. There would have been no way we could have won this without our friends. So from there, we get another French nobleman. His name is Marquis de Lafayette. He's actually only 19 years old. And what's really neat about him is he actually comes over and spends his own money to help fund our troops. And he also helps to persuade King Louis XVI of France to send additional 6,000 troops to us. And Marquis de Lafayette is kind of known as George Washington's right-hand man during this war. And it kind of had like a fatherly and son style relationship. From there, we had a Prussian officer from Germany. His name is Baron von Steuben, and his main goal is that during Valley Forge, when all of our troops were stuck in a winter encampment where 20 to 25% would either desert or end up dying, he actually taught our troops how to march in the proper manner, how to use the bayonet, and how to use other various battle tactics, which we call linear tactics, which we still use today for our tanks. Then we were wintering at Valley Forge. We were right outside of Philadelphia. Inside of Philadelphia, you had the British. Right outside, you had us. You had the Americans. It was extremely cold. We did not have any supplies. Some soldiers end up deserting, and about a quarter of his troops will end up dying or leaving. And what we got to understand is this really starts bringing out the American character, that even though life is hard, these men have no shoes, they're eating horses, they're leaving bloody tracks in the field. Even though all of this is occurring, we are still willing to step up, suck it up, and do what needs to be done. Like Mr. A always says, it's not necessarily what you want to do, but it's what you need to do to be successful. And that's exactly what George Washington and his troops developed during Valley Forge. Then we have one of my relatives, George Rogers Clark. He used to be a pilgrim back prior to his ancestors, and he actually fought on the frontier. He fought in the western areas, modern day Ohio, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And what George Rogers Clark did is use his small forces to constantly run back and forth and attack the British on the frontier. One of his favorite things to do was to dress up his men as different Native American groups and different groups, so he looks like he had a whole bunch more than he really had, make a whole bunch of noise. So when you would attack forts, they would think he had thousands and thousands of men, and in reality, he only had probably about 200 men. So, excuse me. I do apologize about that jump cut there. But anyway, just as quick review, we went over the war on the frontier. We spoke about George Rogers Clark, one of my relatives, and how he decided to use, yet again, a bluff. That whole idea of not letting people see your poker face. Again, just like how George Washington did it when he retreated from New York, just like how we did it on Boston Heights during Bunker Hill, just again and again and again. We bluff and we figure out a way to win, even though we have less people and less training. From there, we went to the war at the sea. Britain had control of seas. There's really nothing we can do about that. They had the largest navy in the world ever since the fall of the Spanish Armada. When we looked at that all the way back, I think in Unit 2 or 3, I don't exactly remember, and all the way up to right after World War I, when the United States and Japan takes over the strongest ships. So because we had no ability, we had no ships, no navy, we used what we called privateers. And privateers are more or less just pirates that are hired by a government. So that for your test, your hint is if it's for gold and glory. It's for the gold that they get and the glory of their country. So from there, we went to John Paul Jones, who's I think is not only the basis for Led Zeppelin, but also our very first naval officer who was actually successful. He's best known for attacking the Serapis, winning the battle, and then he took the Serapis. So he actually had his own boat called the Bonaparte Richard, which he stole from the British. And during the battle, they get real close together, and the Bonaparte Richard looks like it's about to be destroyed. And the British ask, "Hey, do you want to give up?" He goes, "I have not yet begun to fight." And actually, his ship sinks, but he ends up taking over the Serapis, the British major ship of the line, and using that as his main ship, which was freaking incredible. This dude who had no training, he was a merchant officer who started hunting around Britain and then takes one of their major ship of the line with this little tiny frigate. That is freaking awesome. And when you look at that, we've got to be aware, though we may be small, we will definitely fight you. So, the end of this vlog for your discussion board for your question, which you might either post on my website or you may post and bring home in class your paper. Which person in this vlog has had the largest effect on the Revolutionary War? Why do you think this? So, was it Baron von Steuben, Marquis de Lafayette, King Louis XVI, or John Paul Jones, or General George Rogers Clark? So, as always, don't forget to be awesome.